Welcome to the Brain Gain Youngstown Leadership Series podcast. Each week, we'll learn from leaders who are driving change and making an impact. Now here's your host, the CEO of the Youngstown Publishing Company, Jeff Leo Herrmann.
So today we are joined by Frank LaRose. He is Ohio's 51st Secretary of State. So Frank, thanks for joining us on the Brain Gain podcast.
Hey, Jeff, I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm great to see you. We had a great conversation at the Mocha House here in Youngstown, and we're going to pick up from where we left off. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. And as you can see, I'm here in snowy Columbus at the Secretary of State's office, but really look forward to getting back up to the Valley and seeing you again in person soon.
Well, and you're essentially local, right? You grew up just west of here in Copley, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So grew up in Copley Township, Summit County boy my whole life, and really just last year decided to move down to Columbus. My wife had been urging it, and she was right. Having your desk 150 miles away from your bed doesn't work out. And I was just missing too much time with my children with the commute back and forth. But my heart is always in Northeast Ohio, but it makes sense to live closer to the office now.
Oh, it sure does. I mean, commuting is stressful. And like you said, games and events for the kids, it's really helpful to have home and work in the same community.
I described it like this. When I was in the Army told me to move to Fort Campbell or Fort Bragg or Fort Benning, but those places, they were great places to live for the time being. But again, they were never sort of my hometown. Columbus is a great place to live, but Northeast Ohio is still home to me.
Absolutely. So then I want to get into the regular set of questions we ask. As a child, did you have any clue you'd be Ohio's Secretary of State? Did you always aspire to have a career in government?
No, absolutely not. Although it's funny because now when I talk to some of my old teachers or coaches or Boy Scout leaders, they will tell me that they predicted that I would end up in this line of work or something similar. But as a kid, there were two things that I really loved. First of all, I worked on a farm in Copley, and I loved that. I loved the lifestyle. I loved the hard work. I loved the sense of satisfaction of seeing a job well done. And so if I could have earned a living or inherited a family farm or whatever else, I would have enjoyed pursuing that. In fact, to this day, I still go back every year and help when it's time to bale hay several times a year at the farm I grew up working on because I enjoy it. It's good to get out there in the sun and sweat a little bit and throw some bales of hay and stack them up in the barn and that kind of thing.
It's tough on the back.
It's good exercise. But I'll tell you what, just sitting on that tractor, running the hay rake or running the baler or whatever else, it's just for me, it's very satisfying work. But again, the other thing that I was passionate about from a young age was becoming a soldier. And I was mentored by a gentleman when I was a young man who was the leader of my Boy Scout troop. And he had served in World War II. In fact, he's still with us. He's in his late 90s at this point, lives in Fair Lawn, Ohio.
Wow.
And is to this day still my hero. I mean, this man's a concentration camp liberator. And those are the kind of stories that I got to hear sitting around the campfire at Boy Scout camp at Camp Manitowoc. And so I always, from probably the age of 14 on, said I wanted to be a soldier. And I fulfilled that dream by enlisting in the Army when I turned 18.
And that was right at the present time. That was when we were just starting the Gulf War. Is that correct? Right after 9/11?
No, it was actually in 1997. It was well before that. In fact, we were sort of in that transitional period between the first Gulf War of the Bush administration and sort of the Clinton administration years. But not long after I enlisted was when some of the peacekeeping operations in the Balkans began. I served in Kosovo, for example, for a year. And then I actually was going through the Special Forces training when September 11th happened, which was actually a really interesting experience. I had already volunteered to become a Green Beret and gone through the tryouts. And so I'd been selected for the course but yet I hadn't finished the Green Beret training. And so I was in kind of that period between getting selected and actually earning my Green Beret. And I'll tell you, it added a new emphasis to the training that we were doing for sure, because we knew that almost with certainty that when we completed that training that we would be deploying to combat zones.
Was there an extra sense of urgency or a sense of mission? I imagine the air all around you was very intense, right? Or focused.
Yeah, focused, but also I guess enthusiastic. Remember, I was with I was with people that had volunteered to serve in the Special Forces. They were excited about the opportunity to serve on a Special Forces A team and to do the work that we were, that we were training to do. It was almost like your team's going to the Super Bowl and you're at practice, right? And so that was kind of the air of excitement and anticipation, and certainly not taking it lightly, the very serious work that we do, but we were excited to have the opportunity to prove ourselves on the battlefield, and most of us got that.
Right. Absolutely. What leadership lessons did you learn from your career in the military?
Too many to count, but there's one that I've talked about a lot recently. I sent a letter to all the newly elected office holders in Ohio. And part of my work as Secretary of State, when we certify the state election, I decided to send a congratulations note in a bipartisan way, Republicans and Democrats, everybody who'd won the election. And one of the lessons I talked about was something that I'll always treasure from the Army. And it's a very simple thing, but I think that there's a profound meaning behind it. And that is that in the Army, the culture has always been that the leaders eat last. If you're the company commander, you don't eat until the entire company has eaten. If you're the platoon sergeant or the company first sergeant, you don't eat until the entire unit has eaten. Same for the battalion commander. In fact, I knew in some units, the battalion commander would wait for a call from the mess sergeant before he would even consider going to eat. And it was just part of the culture. It was symbolic of something, though. Leadership is not about elevating yourself above others. Leadership is not about sort of telling others what to do, although sometimes you have to do that by necessity. Leadership is about accepting a position where you place yourself in a position of being a servant leader, where you recognize that the well-being of your subordinates is one of your top priorities. But leadership is about getting a group of people to accomplish something together. And so, again, in the Army, what that shows, especially those junior soldiers, is that the commander cares about making sure that you're fed before he feeds himself. And so it's a symbolic thing about servant leadership, about leadership as a humbling experience, not an elevating experience.
Right. Now, how do servant leaders, so, the perception in the Army, very top down, very hierarchical, how do servant leaders get the respect and command, essentially, and kind of issue orders that might not be as the people might not be as interested in fulfilling them? I don't know.
It's interesting that, often there's a perception in the military, there's a perception in the civilian world that in the military, it's this very kind of very top down, very hierarchical. And of course, there is that rank structure for a reason. But in many ways, it actually is not as constraining as people think. In many ways, it's actually quite liberating, because what it does is it gives you the framework. You know who your boss is. You know who your boss's boss is. There's no ambiguity. But one of the other things that the U.S. military does differently than a lot of other militaries around the world is that they really empower those subordinate leaders at each level to be creative, to accomplish the mission. This is why it's also part of the culture of the U.S. military that whether it's the top commander or whether it's the lowest ranking sergeant or even the privates that serve below that sergeant, that everybody in the unit understands the mission, right? Mm-hmm. Understands the top line. This is what we need to accomplish. And that way, if there are losses, if someone goes down, then you can pick up and carry on the mission. And so it's that idea that everybody is able to step up into the position above them and carry on the work. But again, the real thing that you talked about was inspiring people to want to follow you. And it's important to understand that leadership kind of has two tracks, right? There are leaders that people follow because they have to. There are leaders that people follow because they have a rank on their collar or because they have a certain job title in the corporate world. And we've all worked for leaders like that you don't necessarily respect, but you followed because you had to. That's not a good working environment, and that's not how you get the best out of people. There are also those leaders that people follow because they want to, because they're inspired. by that leader. And to me, that's something that nobody is born with, right? You learn how to do that, how to inspire a group of people. This is what any good football coach can tell you, right? Or any good corporate leader, for that matter, any military leader. And to me, it starts with leading by example. You don't ever ask people to do something that you yourself are unwilling to do.
Right.
And again, leading by example means you don't say, hey guys, go over there and dig this hole. You pick up a shovel,
grab a shovel and go with them.
Follow me. We're going to go dig a hole, right? And that doesn't mean that the person in charge can spend all of his or her time doing sort of the grunt work. But you have to be willing to lead by example.
Absolutely. From that standpoint, oftentimes we learn from our mistakes. Have there been leadership mistakes you've made, or anything you'd care to share from that standpoint?
Any leader that tells you that they haven't made mistakes is lying. I'm trying to think of a specific example. There were certainly some times in the military that I was not as clear with my subordinates as I should have been, and that's something that I always try to not replicate in my current work. I think that people deserve clarity. They deserve to know what is their mission. What is the definition of mission success? What is the timeline? Who's accountable? It's that thing about when everybody's in charge, in reality, nobody's in charge.
Nobody's in charge, right.
You need to let people know clearly you are responsible for this. You are accountable for this. You'll get the blame if it goes wrong, or more importantly, you'll get the adulation if it goes well. And so I think that sort of command clarity is something that I've had to learn over the years, and something that I kind of aspire to have in my current role as it relates to the work I do with my team.
Right. Well, you talked about ambiguity, or there's no ambiguity, which oftentimes for kids, ambiguity, it's an opportunity, right? Because if you see ambiguity, it's unclear. People might be feeling around for what's next. If you can come in and introduce the ambiguity, or eliminate the ambiguity and introduce clarity, that really gets everyone moving in the same direction. Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's not as much constraining as it is liberating, because there's also this idea that we should remove unnecessary decisions from our lives, right? And interestingly, one person who I heard speak on this at one point was former President Obama. He even talked about, to the point where he told the White House kitchen staff, don't ask him what he wants to eat. Here's a list of stuff he'll eat. He doesn't really care. Just serve him whatever. Like, don't ask me every day what I want to eat. I don't want to make unnecessary decisions. Just bring me whatever's next on the list. Even down to his attire, where he organized his closet, where it's just like, here's a dozen different suits, and I just pick the next one each day. Because as a leader, especially somebody at the level of the U.S. presidency, you have to make so many consequential decisions. Just remove the unnecessary decisions from your life. Actually, one of the things I missed about the Army is I never had to think about what I wore each day. Whatever clean uniform was in the closet, and I put it on. And so it's the same thing with that within an organization. If you can liberate people to focus on the real task that they've got to do, and not sort of the minutia of the sort of day-to-day, office environment or whatever else, that's important. And give them clarity. This is what I expect you to accomplish. This is the timeline. These are the tools you have. This is the definition of success for this particular mission. And then, set people free to go be creative about how they're going to get that work done. Right.
And we can quote Jocko Willink, right? Discipline equals freedom. You listen to his podcast?
Yeah, I have actually. And yeah, what a wild man.
Yeah, right. So we've done impressions of him in the past, but we won't go there today.
The Brain Gain is a collaborative effort, and we'd like to thank our headlining sponsors, including Farmers National Bank, Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition, and Southwoods Health. Also included are Eastern Gateway Community College, PNC Bank, the Moransky Companies, the Mahoning County Career and Technical Center, the Youngstown Business Incubator, Simon Roofing, the DeBartolo Corporation, Youngstown State University, and Junior Achievement of the Mahoning Valley.
So from the standpoint of what you're focused on today, I really want to understand what your office is doing to help entrepreneurs. Yeah. So how can we really, our commitment is to build a culture of entrepreneurship and promote workforce development here in the Mahoning Valley. Obviously, we have a lot of great momentum happening with everything in Lordstown. What are you doing to help promote entrepreneurs across the state of Ohio?
So, Jeff, there are two things that we do at the Secretary of State's office. I mean, it can sometimes, people can overcomplicate things, especially in government. But we do two things. We help people vote and we help people start businesses. And so, of course, I serve as the chief elections officer. We work with our boards of elections to help people have free and fair elections in Ohio. That's one part of the job that I love. But just as important is the side of the office where we're the front door for all new businesses. So when somebody wants to form their LLC or their S Corp or even their nonprofit corporation, that begins at the Ohio Secretary of State's office. So we're kind of that funnel point. Every new entrepreneur, everybody that wants to start an enterprise has to sort of come through our door or virtually come through our door with our website, which is where 98% of the folks do their business filings at this point. But we viewed that as an opportunity. And so one of the first things that we did was let's start connecting entrepreneurs with the resources that already exist. Let's be that matchmaker. And actually, what this came out of is a series of small business roundtables that I did around the state. We went out to listen to the people that know best. What are the barriers? What are the problems? And one of the things I heard was, I was in business for 10 years before I realized that there was this SBA program that existed, or I was in business for years before I realized that there was this state program that I could take advantage of. There's a lot of great stuff out there. We don't need to create more government and reinvent the wheel by creating new programs necessarily, although sometimes there's a need for that. But what our office can do is sort of connect entrepreneurs up with the tools that can help them put a little bit of rocket fuel in their tank as they start their business. And so that's one of the things that we started doing right there on our website. So on day one, the day that we give you your articles of incorporation, we also say, here's a list of resources. And by the way, we're working to constantly grow that and develop it and vet those and make them better. But don't hunt for them or spend, your valuable time as an entrepreneur looking for these state, local, and federal, and for that matter, nonprofit organizations that can help you as an entrepreneur. Here they are. And so that's something that we started doing. Something else that I'm just passionate about is encouraging entrepreneurship. It's something that we should be talking about. We should be talking about the value of risk taking. Listen, as parents, I think that we drill into our kids to be safe, to not take chances and that kind of thing. And that's fine. I understand that. But we also need to extol the virtues of risk taking, right? And that doesn't mean that you're foolish about it. But that means that people that are willing to take risk, people that are willing to go out and try something new are the ones that are going to reap the rewards and potentially and also sustain the losses if that's the case. But we're a nation of bold, entrepreneurial people. At least we have been historically, and we ought not lose that, right? A lot of that has been fed over our history by things like the westward migration, like the influx of immigrants that were coming to this country because they had that bold American dream. I mean, that's my family's history. My great grandfather immigrated from Italy. He didn't have much to lose, right? Like he was desperate, and so he came to the United States with this dream that he was going to start a business, and he did that right here in Ohio, and he built an enterprise that still exists today. And so, that entrepreneurial spirit is something that we need to talk about and encourage. I know that that's something that you do. And then finally, we're doing some work right now to really encourage entrepreneurship in the minority community. There's a great history there, and it's born out of necessity, like most things, where entrepreneurial energy existed in the minority community because people wouldn't hire them, because they didn't have certain services or products available in their neighborhoods. And so they said, you know what, we'll do it ourselves. That's the human spirit, right? Well, that same entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well for new American immigrants that are still coming to this country, for minority communities that are traditionally underserved. And there's some things that we need to do to assist with that. One of them that I'm working on right now across the street at the State House is making the MBE program less bureaucratic, to become a certified minority business enterprise, there's a lot of different classifications and a lot of different acronyms, but the basic idea is that you shouldn't have to go through this bureaucratic process over and over again. You should be able to get a certification one time and then use that to compete as a MBE all throughout the state. So these are a variety of things that we're working on. I'm all ears for things that we can continue to do. When I served in the state legislature, I had a real focus on reducing taxes and reducing regulations. That continues to be a priority. I think that Ohio is a business-friendly state, but I think that we've got further to go. And I think that there's a lot of great energy right there in the Mahoning Valley.
Do you think, do we have to plant these seeds of entrepreneurship in middle school? Like, how far back do we go? Is this something that, I don't know. What do you think about that? How do kids get this spirit?
Just as a parent, I've encouraged my girls. They wanted to do the lemonade stand thing or whatever else, and we laugh. But it's a great experience for them to understand, what work has to go into to starting a business and that kind of thing. My dad has been over the years a volunteer with a group called Junior Achievement that goes in to schools and talks about entrepreneurship. I just think that there's a variety of different ways that we can do it. But yeah, it has to start at the younger ages. It has to start with each of us as mentors. I think that anytime any of us take the opportunity to mentor a young person, that's time well spent. One of the things that I've done, I've got a small platform as the Secretary of State to try to shine a light on things. There's an example a couple of weeks ago where there was a young woman who wanted to start a business. I think it was selling chocolates, and her parents gave her an LLC registration as her Christmas gift through our office. And so we highlighted that on social media. There's another example of a woman here in Columbus who was concerned over the summer and was engaged in this very difficult but necessary conversation about racial justice and that kind of thing. And her inspiration was that one of the best ways to help bring prosperity to her community, and she's an African-American woman, is to help encourage entrepreneurship. And so she started a Facebook group to talk about, you should start a business, you should build generational wealth that you can pass on to your children. And so we highlighted her late last year in an event that we did online as well. So it's just taking those opportunities to really point out where good things are happening out in the community is another thing.
So beyond forms and filings, actually a source of inspiration, right? I mean, that's really what we have to do, set examples, lead by example, and provide a source of inspiration.
Each of us, right? And I know that a lot of your listeners are business owners. I met a guy in Dayton a couple of years ago who owns a manufacturing company, and he was concerned about trying to hire people to come and work for him, and people not being interested in going into the world of manufacturing because, they'd been told by their parents that maybe not a good path for him. And so he started a robot war competition in his warehouse where he would clear out a bunch of pallets and let kids come in, and he paid for it. He would give them the parts and they would build stuff and they would battle you've seen the show on whatever. As a business owner, the people that listen to your podcast, Jeff, are very well positioned to mentor young people, to find ways to inspire young people, to encourage them to look at entrepreneurship as a path as well.
Absolutely. So to wrap things up, where do you see the Mahoning Valley? So you have a unique perspective being a Northeast Ohio resident, and you see the momentum happening here. Now you're in Columbus looking from a statewide perspective. I mean, do you have any recommendations or maybe challenges? I love the entrepreneurship perspective, right? Just get kids involved early on their level. But where do you see us going here in the near term?
So first of all, I'm very enthusiastic about the opportunities for the Mahoning Valley, because I think that right there in Northeast Ohio, right there in the Mahoning Valley, we have something that is in short demand in other places. And that is, we have a great work ethic. We have skilled tradesmen and women, people that know how to work with their hands, which is an honorable profession. We need to talk about that. Not everybody needs to go get a traditional liberal arts education. It's great to go get a degree in British literature, but the British literature factory isn't hiring lately, right? Like, and I don't mean to downplay the importance of those kind of pursuits, but right there in the Youngstown area, we got people that know how to make things, and so we should focus on our strengths, right? Any good business knows to focus on their strengths. So advanced manufacturing, building things, making things, and it doesn't necessarily mean the old industries that our grandparents worked in. Many of those we're not going to see come back in the traditional sense that some may have predicted. But what we are going to see is some of those advanced manufacturing. There's always going to be a need for high quality manufacturing to build the things, whatever those things may be, that our society needs to thrive and prosper. And I think that Youngstown's a great place to do it, first and foremost, because of the people. The people that have the work ethic and the skills, but also we're in a great location logistically. You've heard before that from right there in Northeast Ohio, you're a 1 day's drive from, I think, 60% of the U.S. population. You can reach the East Coast. You can reach Chicago. You can reach down into parts of the Southeast in this country. And so from right there in Northeast Ohio is a great place to build things and then access the markets that really matter right here in the United States. And so I think there's a great opportunity, and I want to see it continue.
Absolutely. Loading dock of the Midwest, right? We can get things moving from here.
Yep.
Well, Secretary of State Frank LaRose, thanks so much. You've been generous with your time today. Great to get to know you better here on the Brain Gain Youngstown Leadership Podcast. What's in store for you in the future? What are you looking at here a couple years out? Any plans?
Yeah, no, I think that there's a problem sometimes where people in my line of work are busy thinking about the next job. And I don't mean that ambition's a bad thing, but if you're serving in a government position and all you're thinking about is the next position that you can run for, then you're probably doing it wrong. I love this job because of the mission. Again, we help people vote and we help people start businesses.
Very important.
Those are things that are foundational to our way of life. I love them. I love serving as Ohio Secretary of State. I'm working to hopefully earn re-election, which will be in a short time. And so that's something I'm going to continue to focus on. And who knows what the future may hold at 41 years old. I've got, I got some runway still in front of me. We'll see where that goes. And I just appreciate the conversation, and I hope that your viewers of your podcast stay involved in this conversation as well. I'd invite people to give me a follow on social media. It's just my name at Frank LaRose on all the different platforms, and so the conversation can continue there.
Frank, you've got a LinkedIn game going. I know. I saw the videos. You were crushing it the first of the year, so good for you on your LinkedIn game. That's where I spend most of my time. I don't mess with Facebook so much, but
I wish I could shut it all off, candidly. But as a public servant, you got to engage in those social media conversations. But I try to keep it, at a thoughtful, civil level. There's just too much personal attacks and nastiness. And, how about we talk about ideas and issues and how we move forward instead of just attacking people all the time? I guess that's my admonition. And so, some of the nonsense on social media, the trolls and all of that, I just ignore. But when I can talk about positive content out there, that's exactly what I want to do.
Great. Well, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeff. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on the podcast today, because together we're building a culture of entrepreneurship and promoting workforce development. So if you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast player. Your feedback is very important to us. We want to make the show better all the time. And if you would like to give me direct feedback, email me, please. My email is herrmann@business-journal.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. And lastly, would love to thank the members of the Brain Gain Coalition. Those headline collaborators include Farmers National Bank, Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition, and Southwoods Health. And joining them are members of the coalition, including Eastern Gateway Community College, PNC Bank, the Moransky Companies, MCCTC, the Mahoning County Career and Technical Center, the Youngstown Business Incubator, Simon Roofing, the DeBartolo Corporation, Youngstown State University, and Junior Achievement of Mahoning Valley. Without them, none of this would be possible. So thanks again for joining us today. And remember, together we are building a culture of entrepreneurship and promoting workforce development.
Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell for notifications. And also make sure to connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. For all of your business news, visit businessjournaldaily.com. For all of your arts and entertainment news, go to afterhoursyoungstown.com.